great. It is life-giving to me. If I have too much space, I feel just like icky inside and like I'm rotting and like I don't know, like I can rest, but I need to intentionally rest, and here's what I'm going to do to rest, and it's going to be refreshing, and I can't wait. If I'm like open space fields lifestyle, I'm like, I just don't thrive. So that's how God's wired me. So I'm like naturally kind of high capacity-ish, like having a lot of things that I'm doing. And those two things are me. Also, I was raised in a pretty unique family. Sometimes I describe it and say that the worst sin I could commit growing up is having free time. That's not literally true, but it kind of felt true at times. And with my personality, I wasn't like being slaved around. I was like, yes, I want to do everything, Mom. What's another thing I can sign up for? So always playing a sport, always having music lessons, always in Boy Scouts. Where are my Eagle Scouts at? Anybody? Whoa! Matt Frazier. I was on the cover of the Houston Chronicle one time for Boy Scout stuff. It's kind of weird. But that was just my life, It's like I'm always doing stuff, and so that's how it like kind of still is. So I share those things to just give you a grid and to let you know that like nothing about my personality is prescriptive for you. There's nothing more morally right about planning versus spontaneity. There you go. One's not better than the other. It's not better to be, I like having a lot of things to manage, or I like investing in a few things. That's morally neutral. So I'm speaking from my perspective, but try to hear it in a lens that's helpful for you, not just for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad we're on the same page there. I want to ask y'all a quick question, which is, how many people in this room have been to a life group? That's great. Hopefully it's like the vast majority, if not everyone. But if you haven't been to one, it's okay, because there's going to be more opportunities in life. How many of y'all that have been to a life group have ever felt this feeling inside that basically is like, man, why isn't life group more spirit-led? Why do we have to have this plan? Why wouldn't it be better if we just showed up and asked God what to do, and who cares what time we end, who cares how long the worship is, like let's just make space for God to move. Has anyone at any point related with that sentiment? Awesome, I totally have. So I just want to kind of like clear the air here, because in my opinion, again on this judging versus perceiving deal, whether we ask God about something that's happening right now in this moment, or we ask God about something that's happening tomorrow, like I think both are submitting to the Spirit. So I don't want to create a culture that like real Christians never plan anything, because the Spirit only speaks in the moment, and He will not give you any vision for your life. He's not going to tell you what to do this semester. He's not going to say what to do next week. He's only interested in your exact presently alive moment. I think there's a lot of like purpose in living present in the moment, but it doesn't mean we reject anything that's like forethought. And honestly, like that's what Mitchell and the college team, that's what we're doing, is we're asking God, what do you want to do in life group? And then we like do what He says, and we say, hey guys, this is what we feel like God wants to do. So it's not like, we're Mitchell-led, really. We're like Spirit-led. So I just want y'all to be okay with plans, because when we come to time management, like it's going to be hard to never plan anything and like really effectively manage your time. Like we got to like learn how to cope with this, even if it's not like your preference, and even if you like having flexibility, knowing that you're going to have that flexibility could be like more helpful than just like doing whatever and like hoping it works out. Which is y'all can tell that I'm very like planner oriented because I can't even understand what the other option is. So I'm like, just do whatever. I mean, that's obviously not what everyone who's the P's in the room. That's probably not how y'all feel like you're living life. But I'm just so not P that I'm struggling to understand the P. So give me grace because I feel like I love my P's. So are y'all ready to get more into the meat of this talk? Great. I'm going to spend some time. I'm going to call this the foundation of time management. So y'all going to write that down, the foundation of time management. Because I'm convinced that most often when we have time management problems, it's really not time management problems. It's really a problem or a crack in this foundation. So I'm going to give you 4 cornerstones of what I'm going to just call this foundation of time management. 1 is vision. 1 is life management. The next is stress management. And the next is discipline. I think if we have these 4 pieces in place in our foundation, then time management is very easy. So I'm going to explain what I mean by these 4 things. Vision. This is basically the question of why does my time matter? Or why should I very intentionally steward my time? What's the purpose in that? I'm going to give y'all a couple answers from my perspective to this question. 1 is that God calls us to make the best of our time. Ephesians 5:15 and 16 says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil." Colossians 4:5 is another reference that says a similar thing. Another reason is that our time is so incredibly limited. We have very little of it. It's a short window here on the earth, and then it's eternity with God. And so, we've already started eternity, but the amount of time that we have on this limited perspective, limited knowledge of who God is, and this walk of faith that we don't fully see but we still believe, it's a very short period of time. And so in light of how short life is, it gives us that much more reason to hey, let's live it up, because it's a vapor. It's going to be gone tomorrow. It's our last chance to do it. Another reason is we are created. Oh, let me give y'all a couple verses for the limited thing. John 9:4, Psalm 89:4, and James 4:13 and 15 through 15. Sorry. Another reason, we are created to do stuff. Ephesians 2:10 says we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Did y'all hear that? God prepared something in advance. He's got some planner in him, okay? I'm just saying. The works of your life are already prepared before anyways, never mind. Another verse is 2 Corinthians 9:8. I'm not going to read all these, but it's some good stuff if you want to look it up. The last reason I'll give y'all for why does your time matter is that there are eternal rewards related to how we use our time and how faithfully we steward the time that we're given. So I'm going to read a couple verses on that. One is 2 Corinthians 5, verse 10. It says, "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each of us may receive what is due us for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad." So our salvation is totally grace. It's all Jesus. But what does our eternity look like? The Bible indicates that at least to some extent is related to how we live our life. And you can't live life without having time. If you have no more time, it's because you're dead. As long as you're alive, you've got time. Some other verses, Romans 2:6. Matthew 16:27. 1 Corinthians 3:13. Galatians 6:9. Y'all just do your best. I got the notes, so I can give them to you, you know. You're welcome. Another one I'll read for you is Matthew 25:23. It says, his Lord said, this is at the end of the parable of the talents, if y'all are familiar with that. It says, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So we just want to be faithful with the things that God gives us to do. And one of the things He gives us, other than our gifting, is our time. So let me talk about life management. Life management is basically answering the question, am I thriving in every area of my life? Or is my life unbalanced? Yeah, am I thriving in every area of my life, or am I unbalanced? Drinking water while holding a microphone is actually kind of difficult. So it is our responsibility to take ownership of our life and to actively seek God about these things. And something that my old boss at my old job used to say all the time is that we live our life by design, not by default. He just hammer it into us of why are you doing what you're doing? What are you doing? What's the purpose behind what you're doing? Are you just going through the motions, doing what you think you're supposed to be doing? Or are you living your life on purpose? So what this looks like for me, I'm going to give you all my hot air balloon life management example, okay? Because I'm asking God one day, I'm saying, God, what are the main categories of my life that I need to be thinking about? This book says it's these 7, this book says it's these 12. I feel like I can't think about 12 things at the same time, so God, I need you to make it simple for me. And I felt like He gave me 5 categories, that these are kind of my main life categories. And I got this picture of a hot air balloon, and I'm just going to explain it real quick because it's kind of fun to me. But so each category is makes up part of the balloon, and then spiritual is not a category. Spiritual is the fire in the balloon, right? And so if you are writing, so I'm spending a quiet time Googling hot air balloon facts. You know, this is 2 months ago. Megan was sitting next to me. It was awesome, and I am Googling, and I'm okay, hot air balloon. What can the person in the basket control? That is a hot air balloon blanket, and I'm inspired. Seriously, I've been looking into buying a print that I can put up on my bathroom wall or something. So the only thing that a person in the basket can control is that little lever with the fire. All they can do is put in more fire. In terms of the direction of where the balloon goes, it's literally totally dependent on the wind. They have no directional capabilities, and people have died hot air ballooning because they land in inconvenient places. Seriously, it's kind of discouraging. That's the discouraging part of this story. But I'm okay, all I can control is how much I'm going to sow into God, how much I'm going to sow into the Spirit, and the rest of my life is just going to go wherever God leads it. And the basket became my core values. So I was okay, without these values, I'm not even in the basket. I'm not going anywhere. I can't do the stuff if I'm not grounded in the right foundation. And so Megan, can you drag over my little, I took a picture of my journal. That's me. So, there you go. Maybe y'all want to make your own life hot air balloon, but these are my core values. This just came from me asking God, what do I care about the most? What are my values? I felt like He said, near to God, integrous, loving, empowering, diligent, joyful, and envision. That is who I want to be. Then there's me. I'm very happy in my balloon. I'm pulling on that fire. You got some wind going, leading me. That's spiritual right there. And then you've got finances, Megan, career, relationships, and health. Relationships is my family, my besties, and my disciples. Health is sleep, food, and exercise. And so I'm asking God about these areas, like pretty regularly, saying, God, even 5 still seems like a little bit too much. Give me like 2 to focus on this semester. And so I'm focusing on 2 this semester. It's health and Megan. And it's great. I've lost 15 pounds. And I've done more laundry than I have since middle school. So it's been great. So anyways, I could talk about different, you can move the hot air balloon. We don't need to keep looking at that. But that's just what life management looks like for me, and this is related to my time because when I'm asking God about the different areas in my life, I feel so excited to do those things. When He's like, hey, why don't you exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time? I'm like, yes! Like, God wants me to do this. He cares about my life, you know? Hey, why don't you serve Megan practically in this way? Awesome! Like, it's so much easier for me to obey God than obey some other opinion of what someone else thinks it means to live a good life. You know, I'm like, God, what are you saying to me? And if I'm not thriving in some area, then it's just so easy to ask God, why am I not thriving in this area? So I could talk about different things of what that looks like. I mean, my best friends. Are any of my best friends in the room? Is Alex here? Alex! Alex is my brother and one of my 3 best friends. So he knows, and my other 2 best friends knows that DTR with them, okay? And we have a boxer called Closer Than Brothers. And they're my 3 besties, okay? And we have a few expectations of what that means to me. I remember I was at an airport on my way to Milwaukee boxing one of his friends, whose name is James. And I'm asking him, hey, what do you think about being one of my best friends? This is what that means. I like you a lot, but it's more than just that I enjoy you. I also expect you to be the first person to help me if I'm in a life crisis. If Megan and I have kids and we die, I expect you to sow into my kids' lives. I expect you to be the person that's like managing our estate. Like there's weight and responsibility and trust because this is a very important relationship and it's more than just we're laughing and giggling. But we do that too, because that's important to me also. So anyways, it's just, I love this stuff of like, man, how can I get more intentional with my life? Okay, stress management. If you want to know more about different life systems I use for different categories of life, we can totally talk. And I would love that a lot. Let's get coffee. Seriously. Stress management. This is basically answering the question, what matters right now? And how does God define success? So Blake did an awesome job this morning talking about living in the peace and rest of God. And I just want to encourage you guys that everything he said is true, and that the peace and rest of God really is available to us all the time. It's not dependent on our circumstances. It's not peace and rest when it's a Saturday and I'm not doing anything. It's like peace and rest always. Like I have vivid memories of like encountering God, feeling so peaceful as I have 10 minutes to get from Wayner, the business school, to the architecture building. And I can't take the bus because the bus is too slow, and so I'm carrying my backpack that weighs like 20 pounds, and I'm like sprinting and sweating, and like it's got to be about a mile, and I'm like struggling, you know, and but I'm like, man, God, thank you so much, and I'm like praying for people as I run by them, and I'm like so present with Him, even though this like clock is ticking and I'm about to be late for class, and this happened multiple times a week because that's the way my class schedule is set up, and it was like had the opportunity to be stressful, but I'm like, man, I can like find God in this thing. Or like one time I had 3 tests in a day, and I was like, man, that's kind of hard. But I was like, you know what? This is a fun challenge. 3 tests in one day. How many people can nail 3 tests in one day? I'm going to be one of those people, you know, and I'm like, let's go for it. I'm going to kill this thing. And I like loved it. Finals week was always my favorite week of the semester because I'm like, booyah, game day, let's go. Like, I'm about to nail this stuff, and by the time I find out how I did, I'm already going to be on vacation, and so it's fun, you know? And I just like love taking on challenges, and rather than like being overwhelmed and like, woe is me, you know, whatever. So, just want to encourage y'all to have faith for like, man, there is a place of rest in the fight, in the struggle, in the valley, as Blake was sharing, and it's not like the only way I can be rested is if I eliminate all my responsibilities. If you are constantly finding yourself stressed out, 2 questions you could kind of dig deeper with. One is, am I finding some of my worth in worldly success? So I'll repeat that. Am I finding some of my worth in worldly success? Or in other words, am I placing a stake of my life in unstable ground? So if my worth is 100% found in God, who's a solid rock, He's redeemed me by His blood, by a sacrifice that He's not taking back, it can't be undone. I'm restored into relationship with Him, which is why I was created in the first place. If I really believe that, 100% of my identity is wrapped up in that, then how much is everything else in life really going to get under my skin? You know, it's like, man, I can go into pre-test day with joy, because what happens if I fail a test? Like, nothing of eternal consequence happens. You know, if I didn't study, if I wasn't faithful, that has eternal consequence. But if I do my best and I blow it, it's like, awesome. Praise the Lord. This is like really challenging. Or man, what if I had a B and now it's a C? Dang, you know, like, that's not that big a deal, you know? Like, I didn't finish my homework assignment. I'm bummed, freaking out, just discouraged all day. I stink at life. And it's like, that homework assignment was worth, like, that was one of 5 homework assignments for your semester, and the homework portion of your grade distribution is like 10% max. And it's like, you could have gotten a 0 and still gotten an A in the class, you know? So like, anyways, I don't know if this is even helpful, but it's just like, man, this is not that big a deal. And like, I am free to just do my best, and if my best isn't what I think it should be, then it's like, okay, you know? The second question you can ask yourself if you're constantly stressed out is everything I'm doing because of God's leadership and direction? Or am I spending time doing something, or am I in a commitment that He hasn't actually called me to? So, yeah, I'll say it again. Is everything that I'm doing because of God's leadership and direction? Or am I spending time doing something in a commitment that He has not actually called me to? So this is the great news of stress management, is sometimes the answer is like cut something out of your life, you know? And it can be really refreshing, especially if you realize that it wasn't meant to be there in the first place. And sometimes because we're like, you know, we're college students and we're trying to take on the world, and everyone else is talking about how they're not getting any sleep, so maybe I shouldn't get any sleep either. I don't know. I'm just going to study really inefficiently and do group projects for 10 hours a day where 5 hours I'm just talking to my group about what we might want to do, and we're not actually doing anything. Now I'm stressed because now I don't have time to do everything else. It's like, did you really you didn't probably need to spend 10 hours with your group, you know? It's like, and maybe there are even bigger picture things of an organization you're part of that you think, based on your own logic, is like, this is good for me to do it, but has God told you to do that and led you to do that, or is it your own reasoning as to why you're like doing that? So it's quite possible that God has given you a very full plate. Okay, I'm going to talk about how to deal with that a little bit later. But it is possible that you're the one filling your plate, and God's like, slow down. This is So I like kind of have this reputation of being like super great time manager, super busy. But y'all, I'm working a 24-hour-a-week job, and that's it right now. Like, this is the most lax life I've had since middle school. And high school was harder for me than college, because my high school was crazy. And college was pretty crazy. And this is still, like, I still have some things. I'm married, I'm in ABS, section leading. Megan and I are leading the base staff for Dubai this summer. So there are things that I'm doing that are filling my time. But if you look at my schedule and you eliminate all the like 3 hours of laundry, it's like, okay, if I have 3 hours to do laundry, I'm probably not the most stressed out person on the planet, you know? Like my freshman year of college, I never washed my bed sheets once. Seriously, guys. I slept on the tile floor in my bathroom the last month because of how nasty my sheets smelled. I'm serious, guys. So when I'm talking about life management, I have come a long way. A long way. I also never washed my bath towels. I had two. It's a real story, guys. It's real. And honestly, I was just so time was so valuable to me that I was like, it is not worth it to spend half an hour to do this. And that was like my grid, and I would not recommend that for anybody ever, okay, just to be clear. I don't know why I even said that. It's definitely not in my notes.
It all changed.
We're just going to move on from that. Here's the point is, asking God, okay, are you the one that's giving me all this stuff to do, or am I just running my life into the ground? That example from my freshman year is probably not the Lord saying, hey, you don't have 30 minutes at all, an entire 9-month period of time. It's probably I'm being a freshman and all I'm doing is hanging out with people, and that's like so much more important to me than managing my life well. And I've converted since then. Okay, the fourth point here is discipline. So let me give you the question here with discipline. It's basically answering the question, do I walk in the integrity and faithfulness to consistently honor my word and obey God by doing the things He's called me to do? I'm going to say that probably at least 2 more times. This is the longest question. Do I walk in the integrity and faithfulness to consistently honor my word and obey God by doing the things He's called me to do? One more time. I'm going to pause on it, though. I'm going to wait a second. Here we go. Do I walk in the integrity and faithfulness to consistently honor my word and obey God by doing the things He's called me to do? Or the flip side of that, y'all don't have to. God, I mean, I'm glad y'all are taking notes. That's an encouraging sign. You want me to say that first question one more time?
Yes.
Okay. The foundation corner of discipline. Do I walk in the integrity and faithfulness to consistently honor my word and obey God by doing the things He's called me to do? Or, you don't have to write this down. Okay, I'm sorry if I changed it. You get the point. Or do I only fulfill my commitments some of the time when it's most convenient for my schedule? It's really hard for me to understand why someone would say they're going to do something and then not do it. It is actually very difficult for me. I remember my junior year was the first time a disciple skipped a discipleship meeting in my life. Junior year of college, that was my 5th year, living my 5th year of having a disciple, at least one, and someone doesn't show up. Because I'm saying he skipped. He probably said something like he couldn't make it, or he had to miss this one. I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, I looked you in the eyes and we said every Friday at 8 a.m. for this semester, we're meeting up. What do you mean I was just like, I don't understand. So that was actually, it sounds kind of funny, but I'm like pressing into the forgiveness of God for like a month over one guy missing one discipleship meeting once. I'm serious. And I've got a song about forgiveness. And I was texting men of God like, hey, what do you do when it's just really hard to forgive someone? And they probably think like something tragic's happened. And I'm like, literally just a guy missed discipleship. And I don't agree with his reasoning. And so I'm like judging him like crazy, And I did forgive that guy. And a lot of y'all know who he is, so I'm not going to say his name. And the encouraging thing is, though, God had told me before that semester started, again, going back to life management, because I'm asking God, okay, what are you speaking over my semester? I felt like he said, hey, be an encourager and a rejoicer. And so I already knew, okay, if someone sins, whether they're confessing a sin to me or they're repenting of a sin against me, I'm not going to respond by telling them to repent of their junk, which is what I wanted to do, because I felt like that's what they needed to hear. And God's like, hey, how about instead of calling out the sin, why don't you just encourage and rejoice? Like, why don't you encourage them? Everyone knows what's going wrong with the world. Everyone knows what's wrong with their life. No one sees the hope and faith that no one sees what I'm doing. And I was like, okay. So it's great, because if I had gone like super inner healing mode on this guy for missing a discipleship and like rebuked him, it would have been kind of awkward, because I'm discipling him again right now. And it like would have been pretty messy if that situation, if I had like responded that this is not anything to do with time management, so I'm going to stop. But I'm talking about discipline. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. Okay, that's the fourth foundation. Okay, if you cannot do the things that you already know you're supposed to do, God's already told you to do, and you consistently don't do them, you're going to have a hard time feeling like you're thriving in time management. And it's not because you can't manage your time, it's because you have the time, and then you look at the responsibility that was intended for this time, and you're like, I don't want to do it. And so you don't do it. And that's got nothing to do with time management. Your time, it was set up for you. It was there, ready for you to just nail it. It was like T-ball, And you were like, no, I don't want to play. So that's got nothing to do with time management. So be encouraged. If you're feeling like your wall is time management, it might be that your wall has got something to do with vision, life management, stress management, or discipline. So all these cornerstones really just boil down to living life intentionally, being good stewards with the life God's given us. And if we have if these things are healthy in our life, then we're probably going to be set up really well for time management to go well. So I'm going to give y'all my 3-step advice for time management, if that's cool with y'all. It's very easy. It's very fun. I love it. Makes me happy. Step 1, ask God what you're supposed to do. Don't do what you're not supposed to do. There are a million good things you can do, but you're not meant to do all of them. You can't do all of them. You just need to do whatever God's calling you to do. That's all you have to worry about. Everything else is like out of sight, out of mind. You don't even have to care. It's awesome. All you have to do is eat your own plate, Forget about everyone else's plate. Step 2, you've asked God what to do. Step 2 is create a schedule. Woo! Some of y'all are like, I hate this right now. So once you have clarity from God on what you're supposed to do with your life, what you're supposed to do with your time, your schedule is just saying, okay, God, if I'm going to obey you, if I'm going to say yes to that, like, when am I going to do those things? And you just pick a time and you just roll with it. It doesn't mean you need to be robotic or you can never, like, break your schedule, you know. But it gives you at least some vision and some direction with what to do in any given day, rather than like every day being a wide open slate and you're trying to run through all your things that you have to do and you're like constantly overwhelmed because you're like trying to remember it all in here when they've created awesome things like calendars, you know, and planners. And there are resources in life to help you. Okay, so let's make drag over an example from one of my schedules. So this is kind of hard to see because I don't know why it's so blown up. But if you just kind of scroll down, you'll see I sleep and then I wake up and then I spend time with God. This is from fall of junior year. This is so one of the discipleship times will be exposed here. But anyway, so you can just scroll down. So literally all my minutes are planned out. That's when I have to drive. That's my work, identity management office. It was great. So you're just going down. You've got purple, that's ministry stuff. You've got yellow, that's when I'm doing my homework. And that's the class that I'm going to be doing during that time. And so I'm not worried about all my other classes. I'm not getting to my homework time. You're like, oh gosh, which one should I do? Oh, I don't know. Like, I already know. I've already decided. Then you've got your classes. I show up to class with consistency because I said I was going to do it. You can just keep scrolling down. And then I have some discipleship. Sometimes I exercise. I didn't really do that exercise fell through really that far. And then I spent time with Megan because I'm married. It's awesome. And great. That was junior year. So I don't know if that's helpful for you guys, but this is like my ideal week. This is what I'm doing. You saw some of my times with God are also like planned out. Sometimes I've found that I would get to my quiet time and be like, man, there's so many things I could do. I could read the Bible. I could worship. I could pray. I could just like rest and meditate. I could ask him questions and try to see healing. I could just go do something fun and do it with him and learn how to be his friend. And how am I supposed to know what to do when I get there? And I'm like, oh, why don't I just decide in advance? This is awesome. I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? Like, what are the ways you want to connect with me? I wrote out, there are 7 ways, and I was like, great, 7 ways, 7 days. Every Monday, this is what I'm doing. And I just look forward to Monday because that's going to be my worship day where I just worship for an hour. You know, and Wednesday was meditate day where I do nothing except sit and just be still and know that God is God. And it was like so healthy for me. And if I hadn't decided that, you know, with God, like, hey, this is an area that I need to grow. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to grow in that way. And so there are things I'm doing this semester that are similar. Can you click on the other calendar, Megan? So this is my life now. So again, not everything here is very stressful. Like that's 2 hours to do volunteer work where I know there's going to be emails to respond to. I know there's going to be stuff to do. So that's when I do it. That's me doing chores. That's me knocking out a to-do list. 2 hours dedicated to doing whatever it is that I couldn't do at any other time. It's awesome. Then I'm working at church. I've got discipleships. Ryan Albasta, Tima, are either of y'all here? Maybe not. Bummer. Clayton Fraley's here. Oh, really? There's no Y there. It was done quickly. Then I got ADS. There you go. So, again, what your stuff in your life is, it doesn't really matter to me, but it's really helpful to have that kind of thought through. At least for me, again, I'm very J, and I love it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do today? Boom, calendar. Wow, those all look like very significant things that are directly tied to my destiny and my calling and my desires and what I want to become and who I am and what God's called me to. And so, yes, I can't wait to do all of these things today. So that's step 2, is create a schedule. Step 3 is kind of optional, okay, because this may or may not be applicable to you. But when you ask God, right, what am I supposed to do, and you create your schedule, if you find yourself in this situation of like, man, God gave me more things than I was expecting, and it looks like this is going to be kind of hard to do all these things. Like my plate feels pretty full. So step 3 is learn to get a bigger plate. Meaning, learn how to use your time better, how to increase your capacity, become more efficient, so I can get more done in less time, so that I can do the things that God's called me to. Not to serve efficiency like as your God. You will totally miss people, and you'll be sucked up in your own world forever if you like think efficiency is the end-all be-all, because it's not. It's only a tool to like help us do the things that God's called us to do, you know? Yeah. It's not for you to get ahead yourself, you know? So, I have this document that I just want to like send out to you guys for anyone that wants it, but it's called Efficiency Tips. That's what it looks like. And there are 2 pages to it. I'll run through a couple examples really quick, and then we're going to end a little bit before 9 so that guys can change clothes. And maybe there'll be like time for 2 questions or something. But some of these efficiency tips: eliminate dead time. Most college students spend several hours a day walking around campus between classes. You know who spends hours a day walking? Retired people. That's what retired people do. You do not need to spend 2 hours a day waltzing around, just being stressed for no reason. If you are walking around campus, you might as well enjoy the walk and talk with God and ask Him how He's doing. There's no need to be stressed about what you're going to do 2 hours from now. You might as well just enjoy the time you're not studying by really intentionally not studying. Also, sometimes talking with roommates ends up being hours and hours on end, and you give up your sleep. And sometimes it's not that life-giving, sometimes it's just kind of fun, and maybe it'd be even more beneficial for your relationship with your roommate. Say, hey, I want to hang out with you, let's get lunch sometime, and you're intentionally spending time together, rather than, hey, you're home, I'm home, let's play Mario Kart, it'll be awesome. You know, that might be like very integral to your relationship, but it might be stealing your sleep, which is stealing your energy and creating a like a bad system for your life. Some other tips: never drive during rush hour, never wait in a line for lunch, especially if you're in college. I mean, if you get out of class, you do not need to go right to lunch. That's when everyone else is going to lunch. You're guaranteed you're going to spend 20 minutes waiting in line, whereas if you had just gotten to lunch 30 minutes earlier or 30 minutes later, there'd be no line at all. That's a free 20 minutes right there. Boom. Or just don't buy lunch on campus, just bring your lunch, and then while you're jogging to your class with your backpack, you've got your sandwich in this hand, and you're eating, and you're running, and boom. Again, none of these, you don't have to do any of these things, you know, but if you're like legitimately like, I need to find more time, then maybe some of these things are helpful for you. Waking up early can be very helpful. Learning how to say no can be very helpful. Study well. Don't ever study for fun, unless you really, really like that for some crazy reason. But I never studied for fun. I didn't have a computer, so I was in the on-campus computer room, and it's sad, and no one's there, and it's no fun, and I want to be done as soon as possible so I can get out of there. Y'all may have noticed I didn't do any studying in the evenings. I spend time with Megan or I'm in ADS now in the evenings. Like, I'm not going to go home and be like, oh, now I have to start studying. So I made a commitment, I'm not going to study ever at home. It will not be a place of studying, it's going to be a place of rest. I made that decision, it was helpful for me, and it made me work a lot quicker, because if it was 6 p.m. and my studying wasn't done, I was done. So again, sometimes I turned in an assignment that wasn't fully complete. And I still ended up with a decent GPA. I was okay, I made it. But I didn't like the feeling of turning in a halfway completed assignment, so I started studying faster and realized that, hey, maybe I don't need Facebook. Boom, done. Just created 30 minutes, awesome. Maybe I don't need my phone in my pocket. Maybe I'm going to put it in my backpack so I don't even know if it's buzzing. Boom, done. This is my time to be effective and take on the world. Yeah, media, you really could get rid of a lot of media. God asked me to get rid of ESPN a couple years ago, so I haven't been to ESPN in years. So sometimes guys are like, hey, I want to do a NCAA bracket. Tyler Hardy sent a bracket challenge for all the people on staff, and I just deleted the email because he did it through ESPN. And I'm like, I don't go on ESPN, so sorry. Which is great because I've still got the trophy from the NCAA bowl games that I won, and so I just get to claim my title without having to compete in the next one. It's awesome. Yeah, maybe a couple other suggestions. Set end times for the things that you do. I just touched on that a little bit, but it doesn't have to be a 5-hour relationship connect for it to be worthwhile. It doesn't have to be indefinite studying so that you can tell your classmates how much you studied and how little sleep you got. Oh my gosh, my life is crazy hard. And it's like, I don't know why you are taking pride in running your life into the ground. I think it's a lot cooler. I'd rather be the guy that's like, I'm doing great. I'm glad you studied for 10 hours, but I studied for 2 and I did better than you. Again, not always the case. I'm just asking God, how much time should I study? Okay, this is how much I have. I've got 4 hours. God, I don't feel like that's enough time, but I'm going to study like crazy for these 4 hours. God, I don't even have time to study for all of the essay prompts. There are 10 potential prompts, but we're only going to have to do 3, so give me 6 to learn really well, and I'm just going to pray that the other 4 aren't on there. And then the favor of God's on it. If your life is submitted to God, if it's just you wanting to waste time so you can have more time to do nothing, then it's pointless. But if it's because of everything God's put on your plate, then it's healthy. Anyways, so I'm going to be done. That's the end of my talk, guys. If you are a man that wants to wear some things for athletic things, you can quietly, peacefully exit the room. If that is not you and you would like to ask a question, please do so. It looks like Avery has a question.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. He might ask. He might take something. Yeah.
Usually between 6 and 8 a.m. or on Saturday is when I hang out. She asked, what do you do when someone asks you to hang out? Or I say no. Usually I say yes, though. And then the people that don't want to get up at 6, you didn't need to spend time with anyways. It was awesome. Like, hey, I can do 6 a.m. at Starbucks. And if they really want to spend time, they're saying, yes, I'm in. Ashley, what's that? What's your question, Clayton? How do I feel about studying with friends? I feel like it is draining. I feel like you spend 5 hours with friends, but every time you stop studying to hang out with your friend, your heart is still in study mode, and you're guilty about talking because you're I should be studying right now. And then you get out of the 5 hours and you're like, man, I only got 1 hour worth of stuff done. And you don't feel like, man, I just got to spend so much quality time with Cody. You feel like, man, Cody and I just wasted our study time. I would have rather studied 2 hours and then spent 3 hours playing Mario Kart with Cody than I gotta give Mario Kart a good nod since I knocked it a minute ago. But I'd rather intentionally rest and intentionally work than try to mix and feel like I got neither. Any other questions? Oh, Brenda, you're the final question.
When do you take the time to like plan for your like schedule? I don't know if you already talked about it.
Yeah, when do I take time to plan my schedule? It has been a journey for years of random planning things, but sometimes I'll do it over the weekends. I like to spend 3 hours at a coffee shop thinking about my life and what are the areas of my life and how is it going and how can I do it better. I just spent the past 7 months going through every single thing that anyone has ever prayed over me. I record them on my phone, and so I go through all these recordings, all these encouraging notes from past Secret Power Vibes, and and all these other settings, birthdays, and all these words, and I'm like, okay, I need to sum it all up. So it was like 40 pages worth of stuff that I typed out on a Google Doc, and I'm like, okay, now I need to figure out what the common themes are. And so now I've got it narrowed down, and now I've got 1.5 pages of declarations over my life that I'm going to start declaring every morning based on my takeaway from all these things that people have been declaring over who I am, rather than oh wow, that's encouraging, thanks so much, and I never think about it again. I'm like, okay, if this is the stuff that God's saying about me, if this is who I am, then what am I doing to actively participate and engage and say, yes, God, I want to be those things. And so that's just a random example of something like that. Took 6 or 7 months of 3 hours at Rudy's, breakfast taco. They have Wi-Fi. No one goes to Rudy's. It's awesome. They leave me alone. And it's anyways, so weekends or during times with the Lord, but I always have to check myself to not spend all my times with God, planning stuff and asking Him about my life and making sure that I'm connected with God. Okay, guys, that's all I got. Thanks so much for being here.